Okay, let's dive into this. Welcome to today's Explainer, where we're going to be unpacking one of the world's most disciplined, most formidable institutions. We're talking about the legacy, the immense strength, and the deep-rooted ethos of the Indian Army, often called the Sentinels of the Soil. If you've ever wanted to truly understand the sheer scale, the rich history, and maybe most importantly, the human element behind this massive organization, well, you are in exactly the right place. We're going to take a thematic journey today, breaking down exactly what makes this military force tick. I want you to just pause and think about this for a second. When the whole country sleeps peacefully, an Indian soldier stands, guarding us, without caring for their own life, in icy peaks, scorching deserts, and dense forests. It's a very solemn, incredibly powerful reality. We are looking at one of the bravest and most disciplined forces in the world, whose very existence is basically defined by standing watch in the most unforgiving environments you can possibly imagine. It really sets the stage for a deeply ingrained culture of ultimate sacrifice.
Let's move to our first major theme and see how this builds. A legacy born in 1947, the foundation of a new history.
To really grasp what the modern force is today, we have to look at its chronological roots. Now, while the formal origins of the Army actually began under the British era, the real pivot, the absolute turning point, happens on August 15, 1947. Post-independence, the Indian Army began writing a completely new history. It transitioned from a colonial force to a national shield. And through the decades that followed, we're talking the wars in 1965, 1971, and the Kargil War in 1999, this army continually stepped up to protect the newly independent nation through every single major crisis that came its way. Moving right along to our next section, the scale of strength. Looking at one of the world's largest armies. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is that it shows how this force operates today. It's not just about immense manpower anymore. It's about a highly advanced arsenal. We're looking at modern tanks, advanced weapons, missiles, and high-tech equipment that empower the soldiers who are out there guarding the borders day and night. Millions of soldiers, by the way. Just let that massive scale sink in for a moment. This high-tech foundation is exactly what makes the Indian Army not just massive in pure numbers, but exceptionally strong and capable on the global stage. And that brings us to the extreme environmental contrasts we talked about earlier. On one hand, you literally have soldiers stationed up in Siachen, enduring hostile, sub-zero ice, where temperatures can just plummet to a freezing minus 50 degrees Celsius. And then, on the exact opposite end of the spectrum, you have troops deployed in the scorching, blistering sands of the Rajasthan desert. The weather drastically changes, right? But their vigilance? It doesn't. Their deployment remains completely steadfast, regardless of what nature decides to throw at them. Which leads us to our next section. Beyond the battlefield, looking at examples of unmatched bravery. Because it's not all just about high-tech assets and surviving extreme weather. Take the 1999 Kargil War, for example. This wasn't your standard engagement. It required immense physical and mental courage to literally climb difficult, incredibly rugged mountains while under heavy fire. It was about defeating enemies in almost impossible terrain and ultimately successfully hoisting the tricolor flag once again. It just perfectly encapsulates the sheer willpower of these soldiers when they're facing completely impossible odds. So, the crucial point is, this bravery isn't limited strictly to combat. Sure, we know the history of defeating enemies across major conflicts like 1947, 1965, 1971, and 1999. But they have a dual role, which means they are just as vital during peacetime. Think about massive floods, catastrophic earthquakes, and other huge natural disasters. In those moments, they are the ultimate lifeline for civilians. They aren't just out there fighting wars, they are stepping up to save lives during the absolute worst peacetime crises imaginable. Next up, forging a soldier, the crucible of training. So how exactly does a person become capable of all this? We really need to take a step back and reflect on the immense personal sacrifice that's demanded of every single recruit. It all starts with months of relentless, grueling practice. And that practice builds into an unwavering, incredibly strict discipline, which, is entirely necessary to forge ultimate mental toughness. Because let's face it, physical strength alone just isn't enough to survive what they face. It's only after all of that intense hardship and absolute unwavering dedication that the right to wear the uniform is fiercely earned. And finally, our last section, the ultimate sacrifice, the symbol of a billion trusts. Because all of this, the rigorous training, the rich history, the advanced weaponry we talked about, it all leads to something much, much deeper. The Indian Army is way more than just an organization. It's a symbol of trust for crores. That's tens of millions of Indians. I really want you to think about that for a second. Every single soldier's sacrifice serves as a constant, sobering reminder of the true cost of freedom. The trust of an entire nation rests heavily, yet so securely, right on their shoulders.
Which leads us to a deeply profound question. How will we repay this price of freedom? When you look at the scale of what is actually sacrificed, the extreme weather, the grueling training, the literal wars fought, and the natural disasters navigated, it really leaves us pondering the everyday cost of the liberties we so often just take for granted. What is our responsibility in return? So we'll leave you with a final, heartfelt salute to those incredibly brave soldiers who stay far, far away from their families to protect the country. Jai Hind, Vande Mataram. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this provided a clear, engaging look into the ethos and legacy of these sentinels of the soil. Keep learning, and I will see you next time.